Epstein was intimately involved with this, and almost in a way, folks, he seeded the ground. He was like sharing these ideas with Peter Thiel and Ehud Barak, and also Steve Bannon. So welcome, David.
And Bobby Kotick of Activision.
Well, talk to us. Stealing the future. Talk to us. For you, we had Congressman Ro Khanna.
I saw. I can't believe it.
No, it's fine. So we got Prem, we got Congressman Khanna, and we got now for the first time ever, David Morris. American Prospect said that his book is, quote, among the most important books of the year. It's called Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried, Elite Fraud. Is it Fried or Fried?
Fried, F-R-I-E-D. Sam Bankman-Fried.
And then David is a technology and finance reporter. He's been at Fortune magazine, as well as a PhD historian of technology. Super nerd, and we love nerds. Cryptocurrency is his specialties. And if you saw the Super Bowl, apparently the entire U.S. economy is cryptocurrency, AI, gambling, alcohol. So things are looking great. But we have David because I really wanted to talk about. You see, is that a cat or a dog? What do we got there?
Yeah, it's a cat. I might have to exile him, but for the moment, I'm just humoring him.
Cats are welcome. My cats show up all the time. I really wanted to talk to him about, and we talk about this a lot on the Left Hook, because I think people need to see who the supervillains are and how they work together. This part of this Epstein class. It is the Silicon Valley tech bros. It is the billionaires. It is crypto. It is deregulation. It is a way to disorder the world order. And as we saw in the latest Epstein batch, Epstein was intimately involved with this, and almost in a way, folks, he seeded the ground. He was like sharing these ideas with Peter Thiel and Ehud Barak, and also Steve Bannon. So welcome, David.
And Bobby Kotick of Activision.
Well, talk to us. Stealing the Future. Talk to us about the book, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe we'll back into the book because, you know, the idea of the book is that this sort of techno fantasy has become a tool for imposing authoritarianism disguised as some kind of innovation. And, you know, as you mentioned, Epstein was very into the tech world. And, you know, a timeline that's kind of emerging is that he was very specifically into tech after his 2008 guilty plea for soliciting sex from a minor. He sort of looked at it as a new field where he was less exposed, less destroyed. His reputation was fresh. People like Peter Thiel didn't really know who Jeffrey Epstein was for a certain period of time, so he was able to go to Silicon Valley and, you know, with his money, become an investor into things like, for example, Coinbase, where, you know, we'll get into the complexities here are obviously immense, and I'm sure you're used to having kind of.
I appreciate it, but like let's take it step by step, and I think people are following you right now. So Epstein gets convicted, first time ever. He has a smidgen of accountability, where he the sweetheart deal of all sweetheart deals, despite having nearly 36 women accuse him. Alex Acosta, who later ends up in the Trump administration, gives him a slap on the wrist, 13-month sentence, where 6 out of the 7 days of the week, folks, he continues raping girls. So now he's a convicted, sex offender, and people are still doing business with him, but he wants to continue with his role in God knows all the horrible stuff he was doing without accountability. This is key. Without regulation, without oversight. And this is where I think crypto comes in. So talk to us about how that intersects with crypto.
Yeah. So it actually starts from, as you mentioned, he wants to keep going, right? He wants to launder his reputation. And he hires people to basically try and do SEO optimization to get search results about his conviction off of Google. And one of the ways he winds up trying to do this is in 2011 with something he called the Mind Shift conference, which takes place on Little St. James. It includes, it's sort of a disaster according to what we see in the emails, or at least he thinks so. But what happens in 2011 at Mind Shift is that he meets a guy named Brock Pierce. And Brock Pierce may or may not be a familiar name to people. He is originally a child actor. He appeared in, I think, the second Mighty Ducks movie. Yes. But far more importantly than that, he is part of an alleged abuse scandal in a late 90s startup called Digital Entertainment Network, which was going to be an early video streaming project where many of the young, possibly I think underage actors alleged that Pierce and other members of the leadership team sexually abused them. And so years later, years after this, he is talking about crypto in 2011 at the Mindshift conference. He's one of the only two people at that conference who Epstein, what appears to be Epstein in these emails, says is actually interesting. They go on to have a quite extensive relationship over many years. Brock Pierce, obviously, for some people will know him as the co-founder of Tether, which is a stable coin backed, by the way, by dollars in, oh God, I'm forgetting the name, but held by one of Trump's allies here in the United States. No. By the actual dollars are held by a traditional finance institution, and I'm forgetting exactly right now. But so they collaborate on many things. Brock teaches Epstein about cryptocurrency, and then Brock Pierce then becomes the intermediary for Epstein in about 2014 to make a $3 million donation to Coinbase. Now, Coinbase, among other things that people might be familiar with, obviously it's a crypto exchange, but it has, over the years, under the leadership of CEO Brian Armstrong, made several moves that sort of indicate that it's aligned with the global far-right agenda that was part of what Epstein was trying to promote. An incident that people might not be that familiar with, in 2018, myself and several other reporters found that Coinbase had hired the sort of leftovers of a company called Hacking Team. These were Hacking Team. So these were spyware vendors who sold tools for tracking journalists to regimes in the third world, to fascist regimes who we understand actually did use those in some cases to target and even kill journalists. And Coinbase hired those guys to handle customer data. Now, the backlash to this, led by myself and a few other people, was so extreme that they wound up letting go of those people, but they still, got to keep the money from the acquisition of their firm.
And I think what's also important, David, is they didn't care.
Until it came up. They claimed that they didn't see it in the background check, but obviously that's complete nonsense. So it wasn't a red flag for them internally until other people raised the alarm. The other incident that connects Coinbase to Epstein's politics, at least, is in 2020, in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Coinbase effectively imposed a gag order internally on its employees, saying that they weren't to discuss politics, but the politics in question there was almost certainly Black Lives Matter above all. And so about 5% of Coinbase staff left at that point. So this is all just to draw attention to alignment, if not actual collaboration, between these people and entities.
It was fantastic, and I really appreciate it, because we're dealing with, and I think a recurring theme, and I'm trying to learn more and more about crypto, is they libertarians, off the grid, away from the establishment, no oversight, lack of accountability, explorers, colonizers. We're doing things our own way.
In Brock Pierce's case, literally a colonizer. He is one of the people who has moved to Puerto Rico, established basically a colony there, and has, by the way, continued to face accusations of running a sexual extortion operation out of Puerto Rico.
And also, speaking about Puerto Rico, I just found out that one of these Paul brothers, Paul Logan, came out against Bad Bunny and said it was trash and sat with MAGA. People are like, bro, you live in Puerto Rico, and you deliberately live in Puerto Rico to escape accountability. Yeah.
And I mean, that was obviously, this also does connect to Balaji Srinivasan and the network state ideology, where they're also trying to form these sort of commercial colonies in various places around the world. The other thing to point out about Coinbase and sort of the global far right agenda, of course, is that Coinbase were behind a PAC called Stand with Crypto, or I guess there was a PAC and there was like an quote unquote astroturfed activist group called Stand with Crypto. and they funneled altogether about $131 million into the 2024 election, nominally to support sort of the pro-crypto agenda, which Donald Trump was really signaling hard. But I think about 2/3 of that money went to Republican, and even more of it went to sort of center to center right Democratic campaigns, if you include that all together. But it was primarily supporting a conservative right wing agenda through
I think
that
it's important
plant-based leadership.
but I think it's important. At the end of the day, money is money, and the color the color green trumps all other colors. And a lot of Democrats were in this, liberals were in this. There was like, hey, money's to be made. I'm from the Bay Area originally, David, and I remember. Let's just keep it. Let's be honest. Let's keep it 100. The Obama administrations, the Biden administrations, when there were opportunities to regulate or curtail or maybe heed the warnings of the emergence of these tech bros, like, no, this is fantastic, it's great for the economy, it's great for freedom, and it's great for information. They were also part and parcel responsible for creating this monster. Is that me being too unfair?
Well, I mean, I personally, my take is that there was. I'm not going to judge Obama. I'm frankly like, I know the business more than the politics. But on the business side,
they were kind of like, oh, pie in the sky.
Yeah, pie in the sky, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the theme of the book. You're stealing the future by lying about what you're able to accomplish. We saw hilariously Elon Musk today say, "Oh, we're not going to Mars anymore. We're just going to go to the moon again."
Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, he's
yeah. He's back. He's off Mars now. So after 15 years, he's made 5 years worth of progress. But anyway, this is the point, right? Like, you get these big lies, and they are big lies in a couple of senses. But we also saw, one of the things that came out of the Epstein dump was that in 2015, Mark Zuckerberg was having a clandestine dinner with Epstein. And so all of these people, I mean, Elon and Mark Zuckerberg in particular, sort of posed as these kind of, I mean, liberal, I think, is the right word. I mean, even the pose was quite centrist and technocratic, but I think they posed as that, and then have very much swung right publicly, obviously, over the last 5 years when
Dave,
it became more convenient.
People are saying that your microphone is a bit too loud for them and it's popping. It's fine for me, even though it's a little bit loud, but just a few people saying your mic is a bit it's popping. How about now?
I'm also just loud. So let me actually do something real quick. I'm seeing you
are showing. That's much better. I think that's much better.
Yeah, so I'm just taking the headphones off. So
how's that, guys? I think that's better, right? It's not popping as much. Give me 1 second. Say something. Say crypto 1 2 3.
Crypto 1 2 3. Somebody's gonna clip this.
No. Dave. Okay. All right. Good. People say it's better. I'll get to Sam, but before we get to Sam, I'm talking about the criminal aspect. Let me put it this way: the way crypto is allowed, it lends itself to be used by some of the worst people for lack of accountability, lack of oversight. Talk to us about Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road.
Well, so Ross, I'm actually not familiar with him coming up in the current round of stuff. I will say, Ross was one of the pardons, right? Like, he got a Trump pardon.
One of the first ones.
It does confuse the issue. Frankly, we're keeping it 100 here. I am sort of on the fence about Ross specifically. I'm somewhat sympathetic to some of the arguments there. Obviously, he committed serious crimes, and whether or not he deserves a pardon, I think, separated from the Trump issue, is a question for me still. But obviously, there are plenty of people who have clearly done bad things that have gotten those pardons. But on the use of crypto for criminality, I actually want to highlight another thing that has emerged completely brand new out of the latest tranche of Epstein documents, which is the sort of new revelations about a woman named Masha Prusakova, who we've heard a little bit about, I think, previously, but very little. And now we're realizing, based on this next tranche, that she was effectively a second Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a 2006 Olympic snowboarder who might have met Epstein at the 2006 Olympics. And we have extensive records of her going back to about that time, actively recruiting women and sort of corresponding with Epstein. I just saw that it's not totally clear that it's her, but she appears to have written a draft of a sexual contract that she intended for Epstein to use with other victims. Epstein paid for her law school to UC Berkeley. I bring her up because I interacted with Masha Prusakova as well as Masha Drakova, who is now known as Masha Boucher, in 2019 when I was investigating what I thought was a ring of fake crypto PR operations. They were running something called Crypto PR Lab and another one called M&A PR. They were using writers who were posing as journalists, paying them behind the scenes for positive coverage of various crypto projects. And this is where the real criminality happens in crypto, is with these like fake investments, right? So these were and Masha Drakova also directly linked to Epstein. She, starting in 2017, was the main PR agent laundering his reputation, or attempting to. And we've identified specific writers that have worked for them.
And also, David, if I may say, Masha Drakova also was a Putinista in the Putin youth movement, literally photographed with Putin, goes from Russia, ends up in New York, is a publicist for Epstein, is connected to Silicon Valley, I think Thiel and Silicon Valley through Epstein, then ends up in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and makes investments, by the way, into Sam Altman's WorldCoin, which is one of the most insanely evil things in crypto. But I think that like Drakova and her sort of semi-partner, what I actually saw a writer in their network who in 2018 wrote a piece about how great 2017 wrote a piece about how great Jeffrey Epstein's support for science was because Trump was cutting funding. So they were doing this reputation laundering for him while also, at the very least, acting as accessories for likely crypto frauds.
And also, we mentioned, I think her name was Masha Drakova, right? The publicist for Epstein, who then ends up in the Bay Area, who then ends up, investing in all these startups. Is that in the latest tranche of the Epstein files, there is the FBI. The FBI has an interview with a confidential informant that alleges that Masha was sent by Russia to steal U.S. technology.
Yes, and I'm not surprised to hear that. And I should point out that, at least publicly, her claim is that she is a dissident now, that there's a documentary called Putin's Kiss that is about her and shows supposedly her progress into sort of rejecting Putin based on abuse of journalists. But to be perfectly blunt, there's some very good reasons to believe that was effectively a sheep dip operation. She was being extricated from Russia to come to the U.S. with kind of a clean slate. I would also add, and this is kind of inside baseball perhaps for some crypto people, but the other connection here is that Masha Prusakova also worked for a website called Cointelegraph, according to one of my sources. Cointelegraph is run by a sort of unknown Russian who also claims to be a dissident, but has also been a huge vector for crypto pump and dumps over the years. So here again, we have this like crypto crime, and a lot of this was actually taking place in the sort of 2018 to 2019 period, where there were these things called initial coin offerings, which were effectively unregistered securities, and they were very widely used and abused in a sort of. There was a bit of a period before it was totally clear that these would be criminally prosecuted. So this was where a lot of that was going. I mean, there's no evidence at this point to directly link Epstein to those frauds, but it would not be at all surprising if he was, somehow using that as means of money laundering. Another one of the connections to Brock Pierce, by the way, when we're talking about money and money laundering, Pierce got his start dealing secondhand in currencies and items from World of Warcraft and other online games, which we at least have a general understanding were very useful at that time, both for money laundering and for communication that was unmonitored.
And also what we know now from the latest Epstein tranche is the person who was extremely interested in how communications, culture, and digital money was being used in these online games, right? World of Warcraft.
And this was the Bobby Kotick thing.
Epstein and Steve Bannon.
Yeah. Yeah. And Steve Bannon actually worked at a company with Brock Pierce
Yep.
before Trump, before any of that. He was part of this world dealing in digital currency. Yesterday, I think we saw a lot of attention on these Bobby Kotick emails where Kotick and Epstein, I don't remember the details, but generally we're talking about online transactions and online currency in games as a way to effectively indoctrinate children into spending money, which is really fun. And so that's another angle here that this entire like digital economy was something that he was interested in from a sort of social engineering standpoint, I suppose, which is one of Epstein's more. I mean, they're all disturbing, but one of his other disturbing interests.
Yeah, folks, just connecting the dots, right? I know there's a lot. So you got this online community. You got gaming. Gaming, there's a lot of women in gaming. I don't want to, there's a lot of women, but often it is seen as a male-dominated, if you will, a space. Especially with online gaming, you have online universe. Within online universe, people spend an obscene amount of time and money in these open games like World of Warcraft. You invest, you level up, you build a community. Oftentimes there's anonymity unless you don't have to share your face, your name.
Right.
It's also ripe for exploitation, for misogyny, for racism, for abuse. In these worlds, right, you're developing stuff like, my kids do it all the time with Fortnite and Roblox, right? Like Roblox money. I could buy this. I could do that. So you're like,
watch out with those kids in Roblox, man. That's a bit of a problem sometimes.
I got them out. I got them out of it. But it's like, this digital currency in this game actually has real life value.
Yeah.
Also, culturally, you have some racists and misogynists. Yeah. This can be used and exploited. So Steve Bannon's in it. Epstein gets interested in it, right? Then you're seeing at the same time crypto. Another thing that we can use, a toy for us, right?
Yeah. And I haven't seen the clear connections yet, but apparently I'm seeing some people talk about more signs that Bannon and perhaps Epstein were behind Gamergate, or at least had obviously they had influence.
Talk to us about Gamergate. For people who don't know, and some of our chat members, they get it. And I was about to go to Gamergate too. Can you just now connect this to Gamergate? Because a lot of people hear it, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very integral to understand how that connects to where we are.
Yeah, it's so wild because I think probably you and myself, paying attention to this, the kind of rise of the right over the years. And at this point, frankly, I feel like a boiled frog because I've been watching this stuff for a decade and never really thought it would happen like this. But the Gamergate was, I think, arguably the coming out party for the global far right in the 21st century. Even though it was sort of framed in this very narrow way about being about like games journalism, at the core of it was hatred of women, and hatred of women who created games, participated in games, reviewed games, and they, you have to give them credit. They did a good job of creating this very narrow slice of the world where they could say some really extreme things because of this one particular person who was engaged in. There was some controversy around somebody who supposedly was in a relationship with somebody whose game they were reviewing. It doesn't matter. It was all a pretext for, Groypers. Those guys came and really used Gamergate as the platform for, it folded up into Pizzagate and QAnon, and it all came out of that. So, that's folks, my very big picture.
And Gamergate really is this type of the dredges of online freaks, the type of stuff you would never say publicly, all the misogyny, all the hate, and then the racism, then translated into real world going against a female gamer and journalist, right? Death threats and doxing. Right. And then it comes out from the swamps of the online 4chan. And guess who wants to meet, and did meet, I think, the creator of 4chan, Epstein. And who was
Moot, right?
Yeah. Can you tell them about that? That what we just found out?
This I'm not so read in on, but we do now know, and to be clear, I think that these are people who would have been really bad news regardless of whether Epstein was involved at all. These are outright fascists, like Nazis. But yeah, we do understand that Moot had some kind of interaction with Epstein, and I believe, and again, I'm sorry, don't quote me on this. This is not my expertise, but I believe that Moot had actually shut down the R poll section of 4chan, met Epstein, had some kind of conversation, and then reopened our poll, which our poll is, like Gamergate itself, a hive of scum and villainy, and really like the
Why
center.
disrespect Mos Eisley like that?
Yeah. Apologies.
The Cantina actually had some good characters, sir.
Seriously, at least interesting, because these are like the boring Nazis too. But that we don't really know. At least I don't really know the nuances of that interaction. But it definitely does seem to have had some kind of impact on Moot's thinking about reopening poll.
And folks, this is why, I know it sounds wild, but it's connected. You have Epstein meeting with Bannon. You got Epstein either seeding and or being seeded with these ideas. Epstein learning how he can be more opaque, more, if you will, under the radar, no accountability. Okay, 4chan. Okay, crypto. Okay, online gaming. The person who was already exploring this was Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon then goes and becomes the chief advisor of Donald Trump. Steve Bannon said that Viktor Orban was Trump before Trump, and he was looking for his avatar for his plot, and his plot is a new world order for white supremacy. For Epstein, I think he's looking for his new world order where he can continue his pedophile ring without accountability. And then you got the techno-fascists, who we'll bring in a second. So all of this is connected, and this is just, David, for the people who are in the weeds, right? So they meet these people. 4chan becomes the hub of Gamergate. Gamergate is this bullshit conspiracy / attack on female journalists. It galvanizes a lot of these incels who then become part and parcel of the right-wing MAGA movement. Gamergate then gives birth to Pizzagate. Pizzagate is the origin of the deep state, where the left is a bunch of pedophiles, which led to, literally in 2016, a Republican voter with a gun right here 20 minutes from where I live, going to this pizza parlor that I've been at. Yeah, and he was not crazy. He's like, I'm here to free the kids. I'm like, what are you talking about? The kids who are trapped underneath the basement by Hillary Clinton. And like, sir, this is a pizza parlor. And then that led to, wait for it, QAnon, that the Republican Party embraced. And now we know, it seems, and again, we'll find out more information, that almost all of this was a psyop, David, created by the people who are actually doing the raping and part of the cabal, but projecting it onto the rest of us.
And I mean, we saw that in general terms. We saw that in the emails between Epstein and Peter Thiel, where they're both kind of like, oh, yay, everything is collapsing, and maybe we can nudge it a little bit, and then things will be cheaper to buy. I do want to pick up on one thing that you said there about sort of Epstein's interest in moving without being seen and clandestine activities. And that's particularly interesting because of the cryptocurrency angle. We have a few emails between him and a guy whose name I'm not going to get exactly right, but who was his personal hacker. And they're talking about Bitcoin. And one of the weird one that Epstein was really interested in was there are discussions of them trying to create a Sharia compliant Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, which is just a strange little canard. Most cryptos are not interest bearing, and anyway. But the one that's more curious even than that is, at a certain point, he starts discussing wanting to remove the anonymity from Bitcoin. And this is about 2014. And what's interesting about that is that we now know, and this actually gets back to Ross Ulbricht as well, by the way. What we now know is that Bitcoin isn't really anonymous. Bitcoin is what we call pseudonymous, which means you have an address that has a number and doesn't have a name associated with it. But over time, if you are active using Bitcoin, there are firms, one of them is called Chainalysis, which is a federal contractor. They're very good at tracing the connections between all these Bitcoin wallets and kind of triangulating to figure out the identity of the actual users. So what intrigues me about this is it suggests that maybe Jeffrey Epstein in 2014 had the mistaken idea that crypto was anonymous, when in fact it turns out it's very traceable. And we don't know anything about this, I'm purely speculating here, but that suggests that Epstein might have possibly used Bitcoin in ways based on his mistaken belief that it was anonymous. And those records are still out there. So there is a possibility that we could go back and find Jeffrey Epstein on the Bitcoin blockchain now. It
creates a ledger, right?
Yes, it's a permanent ledger that still exists going back to 2014, and I think that it's a long shot, and I'm purely speculating, but he could be on there. We could have Epstein activity. We do know he one of the other things he did with Brock Pierce is he, I think around 2013, was thinking about buying Mt. Gox, which was a very early Bitcoin exchange that later collapsed. And so he also later made investments into a company called Blockstream that's quite involved in Bitcoin development. Two of the co-founders of Blockstream, one named Adam Back, at least according to the emails, met Epstein. And Adam Back, by the way, is on the list of people who have been considered candidates to have been Satoshi Nakamoto, the unknown creator of Bitcoin. Unlikely, but Adam Back is on the list. And the other co-founder of Blockstream also actively emailed with Epstein. And so these are people who, at the very least, he was interested in as people creating and in very influential positions in crypto.
This is just my take. I know people who do crypto, very good people. Overwhelmingly, I have never trusted it. Overwhelmingly, I see no benefit it brings to society. Overwhelmingly, I see it as a tool that can be and has been easily exploited. And I believe this bubble will burst, especially as
Well,
time.
I think it's in the process, or at least it's at least deflated quite a bit if you haven't looked in the last few days.
Yeah, and especially with AI, and you've seen. We'll talk about that in a second because I want to, because I thought that bubble burst was coming. It might happen sooner, as you said, you said something, stealing the future. These people all overpromised,
Yep.
and they're not going to deliver. I want to get to, well,
and AI is a huge one. I would love to talk about that, but we'll put a pin in it.
yeah, we'll put a pin in it for right now. But stealing the future, right? Crypto, all this bullshit, right? We're seeing used and abused by people who want to escape accountability. We're seeing it used and abused by people who want to maximize their wealth. We're seeing it used and abused by people who want to do money laundering, sex trafficking, child trafficking, Epstein, disrupt the world order, right? How does Sam Bankman-Fried enter into this conversation?
Yeah. So before I get to Sam specifically, I do want to talk about one aspect of this sort of tech hype cycle, because key to all of this is not just making big promises, but being able to financialize those big promises, being able to create an asset that people can buy that then winds up transferring wealth to you. And, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, is useful exactly because he was bad at it. He blew up. But who's really good at it? Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been promising a trip to Mars for 15 years. He's been promising self-driving cars for at least 10 years, and in fact, selling a self-driving package for about 8 years. And this is all fed into the price of Tesla stock, which is the main source, or one of the main sources, along with SpaceX, of his huge wealth. And also, by the way, you can look at somebody like Adam Neumann of WeWork. These people all cash out. That's what's crucial. They all have this thing that symbolizes their future potential. In Sam Bankman-Fried's case, it was a token called FTT that acted much like FTX stock and that he used as collateral for loans, and those lenders got blown up.
Can you tell people what happened to all those people and where Sam is right now?
Yeah. Okay. So we've done there's the financialization, but how did it happen with Sam? Well, there's a lot of layers to it. It's weirdly complex for something so simple. The
only reason I'm asking, David, is I think it gives us a microcosm or a sneak preview of what I think we will witness with some of these individuals. But continue.
Yeah. So the actual fraud is very high level, extremely stupid and simple. Sam Bankman-Fried took all of his customers' money, and I mean all of it. There was like very little left at the end. And he, with a logic that is genuinely hard to understand, no matter how long you think about it, he took these customer deposits that are short-term deposits, right? He's a custodian as a crypto exchange. You're supposed to be able to pull that money out anytime. You're supposed to be able to trade it, sell it. I mean, these are active traders. Regardless of what you think about cryptocurrency, it is an active asset market where people are doing real activities that are business. And he took their money and put the money into a bunch of illiquid venture capital investments, along with bribes to Chinese officials, laundered money going into super PACs run by his parents and brother, houses in the Bahamas for his parents, a $5 million gift to Stanford funneled through his dad, who curried favor with the administration using that stolen money. All of this stuff happened.
But the bulk of it went to venture capital investments, which is insane if you know anything about finance, because the turnaround for a venture capital firm, if you get a liquidity event, optimistically, you're looking at 3 to 5 years. But these deposits were people who might want to take their money out tomorrow. And so this is one of the things that I talk about in the book at quite a bit of length is Sam Bankman-Fried posed, and frankly, again, there's an Elon Musk comparison to be made here. In public, he posed as this kind of benevolent genius. His intelligence was very much like the selling point.
There you go.
But if you look at his activities, his actual decisions, whether in terms of the structure of this fraud, which was always going to fail, whether you look at his responses immediately after the collapse, which against his lawyer's advice, he went on 100 podcasts and TV shows and lied again and again in a way that hamstrung his defense.
And he looked like a complete moron and a freak, by the way.
He is a complete moron. That's the point I'm working up to, is that if you look at his actual behavior, he's very stupid.
Yes.
This includes, by the way, a very funny one from early last year, which there are some deeper lessons to be learned here. Sam Bankman-Fried obviously wants a pardon from Donald Trump because he has kind of pivoted now from being like, I'm the biggest Democratic donor of all time, to saying, I love Elon Musk. I love the chainsaw. That's one of the things he said. But he said this stuff most recently to Tucker Carlson in an unsanctioned interview that he gave using like a prison iPad that's meant to talk to family. That got him transferred from jail in Brooklyn, where he was preparing for his quote unquote appeal, which is dead and done for. But he's gotten punished twice now for giving these unsanctioned interviews because he doesn't think the rules apply to him, which winds up making you look like a fool.
Shocking.
Yeah.
And also, David, the reason why, and there's another aspect of this, because I remember this man, clearly an idiot, what I've seen, spastic, a fool, moron, can't make eye contact, because of his wealth, because of his wealthy parents, because he was situated in this big club, to quote George Carlin. These people fast-tracked him, right? And it was complicity of this club that elevated this moron, that allowed this story of his alleged genius and wealth. And then all these people who should have known better got conned. It almost reminds me of Theranos. Like, clearly this lady is lying, but they were enamored by her. And then one rich old horny fart said something, and he told another horny fart, and then they elevated her and propped her up. And then she got all the books. And it reminds me a lot of Elon Musk, because I've been told, David, and I remember for 10 years, genius, brilliant. And I remember just 3 years ago, I said on Twitter, this man is a moron. And I remember even some of my friends said, come on, Waj, you might not like his politics, but clearly he's brilliant. I'm like, nope, not convinced he's brilliant. Like, show me his brilliance. Yeah. And everything we've seen of his behavior, David, he does not look smart to me.
Yeah. And I want to plug into a very specific thing. And by the way, I'm seeing some comments. This is indeed my book, Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried, Elite Fraud, and the Cult of Techno-Utopia. One of the points that I get to in the book is that there is this disconnect between like, I'm a genius and, oh, I act like an idiot. It's actually quite rooted in eugenics, which again, we get back to Jeffrey Epstein.
And we've talked about this a lot on Left to Continue. Please, it's very important.
These people love IQ. They love taking a test and then having a number that supposedly attests to their unitary intelligence, that I am smart, therefore everything I do is great and perfect, regardless of the outcomes. And this is particularly important because now we're going to get into, the really deeper stuff behind Sam Bankman-Fried, which is two strains of thought, well, many strains of thought, but three, I guess, are the important ones: effective altruism, rationalism, which, by the way, specifically funded and fostered by Peter Thiel, who supported a guy named Eliezer Yudkowsky. And then the third one is long-termism, which this is the really, truly toxic. I mean, rationalism is bullshit. EA is a tissue paper. Long-termism is evil. Long-termism is this idea that also Elon Musk ascribes to, that human beings, not only that human beings are going to colonize the stars, but, and this is crucial, and this is Will MacAskill, an Oxford professor who was disgraced in SBF's collapse. Will MacAskill argues that presently living humans are ethically equivalent to theoretical future humans. And I don't mean ethically equivalent in the sense that killing somebody now is just as bad as killing somebody in the future. I mean, literally, there is no sense of time in this ethics that if you do something today that results in quote unquote saving millions of lives in the future, then that's actually worth sacrificing lives in the present.
Yeah, genocidal.
Because genocidal, also utilitarian. This is a key word to keep an eye on. They're all about, trade-offs, and basically there's no belief in the human soul or in the fundamental value of human life. It's all sort of maximizing in this very like mathematical way that again gets back to making things tradable, making things investable, turning everything, including human beings, into an asset that can be managed. And so, yes, I saw some people.
Empathy is a weakness. We need
Yes.
to prioritize useful people. These are all language of Elon Musk.
Yes. And I mean, the empathy thing is really crazy. I mean, you see, Gurwinder Bogle, I think, is one of these guys who has written about like how empathy is evil. I mean, it's really right out in the open what they're trying to give everybody an excuse for, which is genocide.
And so, Omar, we got a smart crowd. Curtis Yarvin, who is the moron basement philosopher of, wait for it, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel funded him, introduced him to, wait for it, J.D. Vance and the broligarchy. Curtis Yarvin, as we talked about often just yesterday on the show, believes democracy is incompatible with capitalism, believes that people who are not useful should be turned into basically Soylent Green or biofuel, right? Like
Yarvin, absolutely. Right? Literally biofuels, I think he said at one point.
Yeah, and then I think what in his humane treatment is the people who are autistic or disabled will put them in a room and put a virtual reality set on them so they can live the rest of their lives in like basically perpetual coma. And this is the guy that Peter Thiel funds his ideas, has proliferated this freak's ideas throughout the Silicon Valley. And guess who follows him, folks? J.D. Vance.
And by the way, to interrupt just briefly, Yarvin made most of his money through a fake startup where he, created technology that's not very useful. I mean, somebody in the comments is going to help me. I'm having a brain fart on the actual name of the company, but he, had a startup that got a high valuation, partly based on investments from Peter Thiel, cashed out. It actually turned into nothing. So this is the way it always works.
And this is where I want to bring in AI, because part and parcel of this, and I'm shamelessly promoting your book, David. People love you. This is David Morris. He reached out to me, and then sorry that I didn't know about you. And then he, I saw his book. He sent me his book. I'm like, oh, David's the guy. And he's super nerd, and we love nerds here. And not only does he do the deep dive, but he also connects the dots for us, for the people who don't know, because I know it's a lot for folks. And I know I'm reading the comment section, people are like, this sounds like bad science fiction. Exactly. It's terrible science fiction in the hands of malcontent, deeply disturbed boys with daddy issues who have gone more power and money they know what to do with, and all the power and the money still makes them miserable. And if it's given a choice between sharing the wealth with the rest of us and burning down Earth, they'll explode Earth. But this is where AI comes in, and they want to live forever through transhumanism. They want to infuse themselves with AI. They believe AI will replace workers. They believe AI will create their private military force that will protect them from us humans who will revolt one day. They've gone all in on AI. And I believe, David, you're the expert, they have overpromised on AI. And now we are seeing in real time the poison fruits of that overpromise and overinvestment. My take. You're the expert.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. And for some very, really obvious reasons. It's actually infuriating as somebody who understands computer science fairly well to watch Sam Altman say that like a large language model like ChatGPT is going to find new cures for cancer, which is literally mathematically impossible. You'll look at, I mean, if people are curious about this, I would strongly recommend you could check out the work of Gary Marcus, who's an actual AI expert who has been sounding the alarm on this for about 4 or 5 years now. But to put it in very simple terms, what Sam Altman has argued for, Sam Altman is not a computer scientist. He's not an AI expert. He's a manager essentially. But he has gone 100% on this idea that you can take large language models, ChatGPT, which have, ingested terabytes of text and pictures, and basically all of their responses are derived from processing these existing texts and images. But he's 100% gone with, if we give them enough human stuff that has already been created, they will become actually intelligent and achieve AGI, artificial general intelligence, which these long-termists sort of fundamental to their worldview is that AGI will be like God. It will in fact replace God in their cosmology. They believe that when you create an AGI and you do it correctly, it will superpower all of humanity. Crucially, it will solve climate change, which is why, for example, in all of the effective altruism, you never heard Sam Bankman-Fried talk about climate change. This is not a concern for them,
They
conveniently
don't
enough.
care. They don't care.
No, they think it's going to be fixed by the God AI. Yeah.
I think that's very important, folks. I think it's very important for people to understand how these people think. And the reason is they're all over the Epstein files. They're part of the big club. Zuckerberg, Thiel, Musk had a wild party with Epstein. It's like it's the Bond supervillain plot. And I know this sounds crazy. This is why I spend so much time on the left hook, is these are the people with their billions buying up elections here and abroad. These are the people who are, if you looked at the Super Bowl, for the 3,300 people joining us, I'm talking to David, who's the author of Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried,
do it again.
Cult of Utopia, right there. It's a great book. These are the people, folks, who are the masters of industry, right? The titans of industry. The Super Bowl, folks, every single commercial was AI, crypto, Ozempic, gambling, and like alcohol. And the end game for these people is they're not interested in saving us. All their money, they could use it to save us. They don't want to save us. They want to bring down the world order, replace it with, we're going to talk about it, a techno-fascist utopia. They don't care about climate change or anything. They're like, oh, we're done. They want to use eugenics and their sperm to repopulate humanity in their image abroad. And by abroad, I'm not talking about Europe. I'm talking about Mars. But apparently David told me now Elon Musk said, oh, we can't do Mars. Apparently the moon.
We're just going to do the moon. Yeah. Because, and you know why? It's because SpaceX is going to IPO soon. And so if you keep talking about Mars, that's actually securities fraud at this point. So he has to pull it back. So I want to, I think we'll like the techno-fascist thing. To sort of ease into that, I want to talk about sort of a corollary to a lot of the AI, and especially like the generative AI and the fact that these LLMs are now taking over universities and infiltrating classrooms, because especially Peter Thiel, a very specific Peter Thiel agenda, starting from when he wrote The Diversity Myth at Stanford back in the 90s, has been to delegitimize.
Can I say Peter Thiel and David Sachs?
Yeah, and David Sachs. Yes.
Can you tell people where David Sachs is right now in the Trump administration?
He's the crypto czar and the AI czar. I think he's both. So again, we get to the connection between eugenics and AI, which, by the way, I'm going to start pitching a book on that. If anybody in the audience wants a book on eugenics and AI, it's coming. But the point for Peter Thiel, or at least a big part of Peter Thiel's observable agenda, is delegitimizing, defunding, and making education culturally less appealing. This entire don't go to college thing, learn to code, this is all a fucking op, man. What you're learning in college is the things that the AI doesn't know. It's the things about, critical thinking and how to analyze the world in a way that doesn't reduce to mathematics. If you reduce everything to mathematics, if all you are is an engineer, then you wind up Sam Bankman-Fried and you're a fucking idiot. But if you're an idiot, that's really useful for the people who want to control you. So I want to really highlight that as like an underlying, and also with journalism, right? You look at Peter Thiel targeting Gawker. We have emails now from Thiel, between Thiel and Epstein, where Epstein is going, I would have totally supported your Gawker attack. A big part of their agenda is to go against journalism because they don't want to have Me Too continue to have traction. They're terrified of that. And so AI fits into this destruction of knowledge. AI is being sold as a new way to access knowledge. It's the opposite. It's a way to stop you from thinking and to limit what you can possibly know to information that already exists. Because you don't learn how to create new knowledge using AI. You just learn to regurgitate stuff that people have already thought.
No, and I think that's a very profound analysis, and I appreciate you sharing that, because they want to reduce us to just numbers and digits and Soylent Green. And what the humanities do is literally teach you to be human: empathy, stories, narrative, thought, history. But if you get
and that
rid of
everybody is unique and that each person has value, that's the most dangerous idea for them, is that each person has value.
Each person has value. Stories matter. Cultures matter, right? People are capable of rising up against tyrants and the regime. Accountability, empathy, humanity. It explains why, folks, they are the way. These are the world's worst people. I kept you for longer than I thought, but it's been a fantastic conversation. There's nearly 3,500 people watching. Folks, this is David. First time. David Morris is a technology expert, a reporter, a journalist. He has a fantastic book. Show the book, Stealing the Future.
Do it one more time. Thank you for letting me do this so shamelessly.
Shameless. No. I'm being
Please
shameless
check it
for
out.
you. The end game, the techno-fascist end game. Suppose they get their druthers. Everything works. We sit back. We're in our soma. We're distracted. Culture wars. We're exhausted. We're drained. We're sick. We don't pay attention. What's the end game?
Well, let's be clear. The end game is not what they say. I think we are living in the end game right now, right? The goal is not to get to Mars. The goal is not to create AI. The goal is not to create Optimus robots. The goal is not even to create self-driving cars. The goal is just to accumulate as much wealth as possible before what they see as the end of the world, which they're the ones creating the end of the world. But I mean, that's really, you have to ignore the sci-fi. That is not something that any of them actually believe. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried, in a weird way, that's one of the sort of interesting things about his story, is that he sort of put a new twist on a lot of this, because people might or might not remember this, but sort of infamously in an interview with Matt Levine on Bloomberg, Sam kind of admitted that he didn't really believe in crypto. His entire thing was, this is just an asset that I can trade and I'm going to make money. He, in some ways, he's the final boss in all of this in a certain way, because he admitted in some sense to his cynicism, but then with effective altruism, you can turn around and say, oh, no. I want to make all this money. I want to become a billionaire because I'm the one who's going to make things better. And this is where you do get to the fascism and the authoritarianism, which is, even Elon Musk, he's selling this dream based on what he can do. There's no democracy in any of this. There's no discussion of how we're going to allocate these resources, because they're his. He's the one who has all the money. And so we just don't even have a discussion where we can actually interact and collaborate in any way. We're just kind of hopeful that Elon Musk is going to create the future that he's promising. And obviously he's not. He's going to build himself a bunker and go get robots to jack him off. I'm sorry.
No, why are you saying sorry? That's probably what's going to happen. And then he's probably going to hate himself when he realizes one of the robots is a trans robot. And then he's going to destroy the robots that he helped create. Fantastic conversation. Well, one last question, David. Look, this is what I'm just looking. I'm a simple English major. What do I know? I'm useless according to Elon Musk and Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm an unfrozen caveman lawyer as well. But I'm old enough to remember that the same architects of the 2008 recession, we were told they're too big to fail. And my constant Paul Revere ringing the bell is that if you look at the U.S. economy, it seems to be bolstered up on this super injection into AI. And if they deliver on their promise, we're effed, because AI literally replaces so many jobs. And I think it'll be absolutely cataclysmic for human beings and the economy. So if they succeed, we're effed. If they don't succeed, and I don't think they will, because I think they've overpromised and overinvested, and I think this bubble is going to burst, then it's going to be a catastrophic, well, they're too big to fail. And now, look, they're so tied to the U.S. government, and they're so tied to the public sector and the private sector, we're going to have to bail them out.
Yeah.
What's your prediction?
Well, I think there's sort of two things here. I think you're absolutely right. And for very specific observable reasons, a bailout is likely just because of the ties between J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel, obviously a co-founder and owner of Palantir, who, again, they're a government contractor, quote unquote. I mean, who knows how effective any of this stuff actually really is. Palantir is supposedly being used by ICE to identify targets for raids and deportations, but that has actually led to no-knock raids on U.S. citizens. So that's the product of Palantir's work. Again, we see technology promising more than it can deliver. even when you're literally doing fascism, it's not working. So all of that aside, the difference here between now and 2008 though is that OpenAI is kind of the biggest culprit here in terms of overinflation. They've made all of these deals with NVIDIA and especially Oracle to do data center build outs. All of this, again, these data centers are the scaling that I was talking about, based on this premise that LLMs, if you just make them big enough, they're going to become actually intelligent. It's all nonsense. And you're already seeing, but the difference, to put the difference, OpenAI is not a public company. They are deeply tied to Oracle, a little bit less so, but still pretty deeply to Microsoft. Last week, I believe we saw Jensen Huang from NVIDIA start to really back off from what had originally been, I think, a $100 billion commitment from NVIDIA to invest in OpenAI. And you actually saw Oracle stock tank pretty hard when Jensen made those comments, because I think
Oracle laid off all those people last week.
Oh, I missed that part. But
Oracle. So last week, Oracle fires thousands of workers to free up money to build these AI data centers because banks weren't investing in it.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I guess if we're swearing here, Oracle is fucked. They are going down the tubes. David Ellison is going to be left owning Paramount and CBS with like no capital behind him. He's going to have to fire Barry Weiss so they actually start making money again. This is all going to happen. Maybe not, in 5 years, but in, a few. And so, but again, the difference is in 2008, the banks were just genuinely systemic. There's obviously a huge amount of debate about like the lack of prosecutions afterwards. But as somebody who understands the kind of financial guts of things, it is with a heavy heart that I must say that the TARP bailouts and other things were probably the right decision. That's not the case here. OpenAI, not a publicly listed company. They're not systemic at all. There is absolutely no excuse for a bailout. I mean, Palantir didn't exist like 10 years ago. So I don't even understand why they would be considered these agencies have been doing their work without that help. So
let them burn. Let them burn.
For corruption, out of corruption, which the Trump administration has obviously had no compunctions about open corruption. And so, the bailouts, if we don't get a House turnover and a Senate turnover before those have to happen, then who knows what will be pushed through. And they're definitely possible.
And the reason why, folks, I want us to all be informed about this, all of us. And I'll let David go. Thank you so much, David. It's fantastic. Come back anytime, especially if you want to talk about something or there's something that I missed. 30,000, by the way, layoffs soon at Oracle.
Yeah. Can I just make one quick plug before I go?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, just to make sure everybody knows, I have my own Substack, and tomorrow I will be publishing something on the Epstein crypto Masha Prusakova connection. It's davidzmorris.substack.com. davidzmorris.substack.com.
David Z. Morris, 2 R's, 2 S's?
Morris, yeah.
At Substack?
At substack.com. Yeah. I haven't done the fancy work of getting a custom domain yet, but my publication is called Dark Markets, so you can look for that.
Yeah, everyone who's watched right now, nearly 3,600 people, and I'm going to put this up later. I know it's been a rolling conversation, folks. It's been 2 hours. I'll chop it up later. Just give me some time. The first 30 minutes with Prem Tucker of Zeteo, really fantastic conversation about Epstein's ties to Israel and specifically Ehud Barak. The second was Ro Khanna came on, talking about the fresh news that he named the 6 of the people who the DOJ scrubbed. He openly calls it a Trump administration cover-up with what's happening with Epstein. I also asked him about accountability. And then we've had David on for the past hour, making the connections as best we can. And I really recommend, folks, what I was saying is really spend time with this. I know it's a lot, but just spend a little bit of time with it because you can't escape this. This is the future. These guys are going to F up. When they F up, I guarantee you, if we don't raise hell, Democrats will join Republicans in bailing them out. I want to give you one example. A month and a half ago, Gavin Newsom was given a softball down the middle. He was asked, will you, tax billionaires, which is wildly popular across the board. Gavin Newsom said, they're part of the big tent. I'm from California. A lot of these billionaires, they give money to both sides. Right now, AI, I'm with you, man. I think this Sam Altman OpenAI thing is going to F us over. Listen to Democrats. They're like, oh, we need AI, Hakeem Jeffries and all these people. You put pressure on them, they can change. When it comes to ICE, they're changing. When it comes to accountability, they're changing. When it comes to taxing the billionaires, they're changing. So you need to be informed for what's about to hit us in about a year or two. Maybe sooner, David. They will F up. And we have to make sure that the Democrats, if indeed we have free and fair elections, they don't bail these people out. They do not need to be bailed out. How has crypto helped you? How has AI helped you? Let these mother effers fail, and not just fail, investigate them and have hearings, because these people are involved in some shady shit. David, thank you so much. Please,
thanks for having me. Thanks a ton.
Promote yourself again. Last time. Who are you?
So
the book.
Yeah, so Stealing the Future. This is a full account of the Sam Bankman-Fried trial. By the way, I have to get in one last dig at my archenemy, Michael Lewis, who wrote a terrible book basically apologizing for Sam Bankman-Fried and calling him innocent. That's going to be turned into an Apple TV series somehow. Maybe. We'll see if he overcomes his embarrassment on that one. I am, unfortunately, for my sins, still active on Elon Musk's X.com at David Z. Morris. And you can find me there and also on Blue Sky under the same tag. And davidzmorris.substack.com is where not only about some of the Epstein stuff coming up, but a lot of deep dives into techno-authoritarianism, techno-fascism, tescriel, which is a term I saw come up in the comments there. So check that out. Look in the archives. There's a lot to read about this if you're trying to get caught up on where all of this came from, because it really goes back a long time. Been developing not just for 10 years, but for like 30, since the 90s is when extropianism and a lot of the first steps of this came out. So there's a long history.
It's fantastic work. Thank you so much, David. David reached out to me, man. Come back anytime. If there's something you really, you think it's popping, or I'm going to reach out to you. David knows his stuff. And for those who are asking, all of this will be up later today on my Substack and David's Substack. So if you missed it, don't worry. David takes us from crypto to gaming to Gamergate to Epstein to these AI freaks to techno-fascism to their endgame. I thought I was very, very helpful. Thanks, David.